Wife kind of cheated on me, trying to process. Okay, I'm really angry and wounded right now. There's a backstory behind this. My wife and I have been married for 14 years, and we have 3 children. We don't have a flawless marriage. No marriage does. But we've weathered the storms and grown deeper in love through the years. But something was discovered yesterday. My wife left her diary on the table 15 years ago, when we'd been dating for 5 years and were a year away from marriage. I didn't rummage through it, but I did look closely enough to notice that my name was all on it. So I read about a page and came across the phrase missing mark. It turned out to be her notebook from a few years ago, when we'd been dating for 3 years and she went traveling in Europe. She met a man, developed feelings for him, and wrote about how gorgeous he was and how she may do something radical, such as maybe sleep with him. I recall her writing something about knowing it was terrible. But that's just how she feels. She subsequently wrote him many times, pleading with him to let her remain with him. I was astonished and outraged. I put down the book and resolved never to question her about it again. I was almost certain that if anything had occurred, she would have informed me. So, although nothing transpired, what she wrote stung a lot. I pushed it aside, and we married a year later. Let's go back to yesterday. While the kids are at Grandma's and we are relaxing, she makes a remark about her old journals. And then it hit me. I recalled everything. It stayed with me all day. I had to inform her we were going for a stroll that night. She dismissed it, but I persisted. I didn't know it was written, but I knew it was upsetting and indicated a desire to cheat. Anyway, at my request, she pulled out the notebook this morning and consented to read it to put the subject to rest. I didn't read it since I didn't want to. She stated that it was full of chatter about being drawn to this other person and wanted to meet up with him to sleep. So there I was, all alone. She acknowledged it, but we both kept in mind that this was before we were married, and our relationship wasn't perfect, though I always thought it was. Nothing happened. She just wanted to sleep with him. She desired to sleep with him, but he never responded to her email. The whole purpose was present. I then looked her in the eyes and said, "Are there any additional interactions I'm not aware of?" She paused for 30 seconds before responding, "No." So I pushed back, saying that it shouldn't have taken that long to say no. Then she burst into tears and informed me that, sure, there was something more. She traveled home for a family vacation in 2001, a year into our serious relationship, and with an old boyfriend. They kissed, stripped, and he fingered her before she claims they were stopped and nothing further occurred. I couldn't believe nothing more had occurred. 2 new 22-year-olds, no, but she claims that's all that happened. There will be no intercourse, no oral, just some kissing and fingers. Edit. After some prodding, she subsequently acknowledged to touching him as well. She went on to say that he had some light oral with her. Even more troubling, she ultimately acknowledged to having oral with each other. She blasted him away. I've been with this lady for 20 years and have always been loyal. However, I now know that she cheated on me once in 2001 and planned to do it again in 2003, but it didn't work out. Even if that happened a long time ago, I'm still upset to hear this. Our relationship would have ended if I had known one of these things at the time. No marriage, no children. But here we are, married with children. I'm just kind of numb and absorbing the fact that the woman I love once had, and willingly attempted to have, a physical experience with another guy in the early years of our relationship. Update. I wrote a few days ago about discovering that my wife of 14 years, my partner of 20 years, and the mother of my 3 children had cheated on me while our committed relationship was in its early stages. We began dating in June of 2000, and she cheated on me in January of 2001. Back home, there was a man who was a friend of her elder sister's, 3 years older, and they had been playing cat and mouse since she was 15, long before she met me. They had a short when she was 18, kissing also before I met her, but it wasn't lustful and there was no intercourse. They were only concerned with one another. All of this is now known to me because my wife maintained comprehensive diaries, which I have now read with her consent in the hope that it would help me forgive her. It hasn't happened. From her viewpoint, our early relationship was not flawless. Due to a family background of violence, alcoholism, and losing many people as a youngster who were meant to love me forever, I was not a completely open book. I was faulty merchandise. When I first began dating as a teen, I was solely looking for marriage material. From the ages of 17 to 21, I had a serious girlfriend with whom I planned to marry. When I was 19, I went across the nation for school, and I maintained a long-distance romance for 2 years. However, the love began to wane, and the relationship terminated in June 2000. It hurt a lot and gave me another reason, along with my past trauma, to be cautious about falling in love with someone new. In no time, this new lady, I'd known for 9 months, asked me out on a date and pursued me. I was a sluggish walker, but she went quickly. She was the one who asked me out and gave us our first kiss. She had a thing for me, and I did care for her, but I knew I needed some emotional distance. This is my single blunder in describing why she cheated. I didn't wear my heart on my sleeve enough, but I was getting there. We spoke about it a lot, and she understood why I needed to be cautious. We began sleeping together quickly and had a lot of chemistry. We couldn't keep our hands off one another, and her poems extolled the virtues of her intercourse with me. When she returned home for Christmas 6 months later and ran into this other man she'd known for years, she felt he could provide her immediate emotional affection. Not to say I was a robot, but I certainly wasn't a poet, and he was right. She wrote in her notebook about a rendezvous with this man and several common friends at a bar, but the other pals didn't show up. They hit up right away, so he took her home and she let him in. He stated he'd go insane if he didn't kiss her, and she answered, "Why don't you?" So they kissed. She then led him into a spare bedroom, where they undressed completely and went to bed. They kissed and fondled for an hour and exchanged, offering oral pleasure, according to her notes. Their legs couldn't stop trembling throughout their euphoric session, and she enjoyed it in every manner. There's a lot of talk about how the meeting was long overdue. She didn't write anything about being torn at the moment. She desired and liked it. She even said she had no remorse. She wrote a few days later, after coming home to me, saying she was still thinking about the other person and realized she had to let me go. She couldn't, however, since she didn't want to be alone. It seems that she was using me for both in companionship. The fact that she informed me they didn't have was a saving grace. I didn't believe her, but according to her notebook, they both decided not to. That doesn't make the betrayal go away. It merely makes it more bearable. He was also in an early committed relationship at the time, and he later married that lady, with whom he had 3 children. As a result, they both cheated. I feel terrible for the guy's wife, who is still in the dark. Apart from all of this, 3 years after the infidelity event, in 2003, she traveled to Ireland to live with her aunt and backpack around Europe. For 4 months, I wholeheartedly supported the trip and her gaining that life experience before we had children. She had my whole and undivided trust, as she always did. Her notebook reveals that while traveling, she developed feelings for other guys. She crushed on one of the boys in her hiking group, but he seemed uninterested. She wrote a lot about him and how much she missed him when their group broke up. I took 3 weeks off work in the middle of her tour, flew out, and traveled with her through France and Ireland. She texted the other man after I returned home, requesting to stay with him in Scotland. If I do, she wrote, I feel I may do something extreme. As an example, you could sleep with him, and I honestly can't say I wouldn't do it, because I'm so taken with him that I nearly want to. I know it's terrible of me, but it's how I feel. Nothing transpired as a result of the guy's failure to respond to her emails. It seems that he had no interest in her, and that she never heard from him, but she was not alone in her desire to find infidelity. There's a lot more she wrote, simply pages and pages of bad thinking with no action. Pages questioned our connection, claiming unequivocally that she didn't love me, and pondering why can't I simply leave him. She had wanted to do so for years, but had been unable to do so. She never informed me these things, nor did she express any real worries to me. I assumed we were happy and in love. We moved in together once she returned from Europe. We married and purchased our first house a year later. A year later, the first kid was born, followed by 2 more. She also buried her betrayals. But now it's all out. I've been processing quickly and happily. The kids were gone all week, so I had plenty of time to rant. I've roared and caused the walls to tremble. I punched a table, and I'm very sure my finger is fractured as a result. I've shed some tears. She drew me into bed on the day she confessed, and it quickly devolved into a hate session. Never done that before in my life. We both wept. We'd fallen asleep holding hands, only to wake up the following morning and all I could think was, she's a selfish, immoral, lying, cheating, and she's stolen everything. And she continues to take it. We'd created fervent love. We've created passionless love. We've spoken and talked and discussed some more. And now, today, it seems as though the storm has gone and all that remains is the devastation. There isn't much more to say. I awoke early this morning and stood there staring at her for half an hour as she slept. I subsequently informed her I needed space and that we were no longer conversing. It breaks my heart to think that this may be the end of my marriage.